Many of you watching this channel want to speak like a CEO. You want to speak with clarity, with confidence, and connect with others as well. All of this is possible, but not if you make communication mistakes like failing to listen. Because when you don't listen, or when you don't listen properly, you can't achieve the connect element of speaking like a CEO. Lack of listening creates disengagement, it erodes trust, and it breaks down relationships as well. It basically makes people feel or tells them that you don't care about them or what they have to say. So over time, what will they do? They will start to communicate and interact with you less and less. They'll stop sharing information with you, and this can happen with people inside your team, with your boss, or with people external to your organization as well. I think for leaders, the biggest reason for lack of listening is distraction. We have our phone, we have text, we have email. All of these things are vying for our attention. To avoid this mistake and improve your listening skills as well as your communication skills, I recommend that you, before every conversation, set the intention to focus on that person. This will help you to block out any other distraction that is vying for your attention at that time. Try to find the key message in what that person is saying. This will force you to really hone in on their message, on what they are trying to communicate with you, because you will be constantly looking for that key message. And if you feel yourself slowly drifting away from the conversation or being distracted by something, then what I recommend you do is to feel the sensation in your toes. This is a method that I use quite often, and it really helps to pull me back into that conversation and to focus back on what that person is telling me. But distraction can also lead to disorganized thoughts, which then leads to confused communication. This is where you aren't clear about what you want to say, so you jump from thought to thought without any kind of logical flow between those thoughts. And your listener walks away confused because they don't know what your message is. In a leadership context, this reflects badly on you because people will start to wonder whether you actually know what you're talking about, and this will lead them to question your competence. So if you want to avoid this result and speak in a logical, well-organized, and intelligent way, you need to include structure into your communication. My favorite structure to use when I want to emphasize clarity in my thinking, especially if I'm caught off guard, is this 3-step structure, where I introduce my main point, I back up my main point with some kind of background information, then I conclude by repeating my main point again. For example, I think hiring Alice over Jack is a better choice. She has strong experience in public relations and some experience dealing with government agencies. Plus, the references I've spoken to have raved about her work and her work ethic too. I think she is closer to the type of candidate that we are looking for in this job, and she will be a better fit in this office. So my preference is to hire Alice over Jack. By stating your main point twice at the beginning, then at the end, it gives your disorganized thoughts clarity and strength, and the audience can walk away knowing exactly what you think rather than being confused as to what your main point is. And the beauty about this structure is it can be expanded to include additional main points or multiple pieces of information, helping you speak like a CEO. If you want to learn more about using different structures in your communication, I will put a video in the description below for you. Once you have structure, you don't want to ruin that good structure that you're following by making the next communication mistake, which is failing to be clear and concise. Because this is another area where you can lose your audience and damage your chances of speaking like a CEO. When you want to make your communication clear and concise, you need to pay attention to these two things: the number of words that you use and also the type of vocabulary that you use. If you have any questions, or if you want to talk about how I can improve my future reports, please let me know. Which is 23 words. Say this. If you have any questions or wish to discuss improvements for future reports, please let me know. Here, I've eliminated 6 words from this sentence, making it clearer and more concise. If you tend to be overly verbose in your communication, whether it's when you speak or when you write, Grammarly is a great tool to use to help you write in a more clear and concise way. Now, Grammarly are not sponsoring this video, and I am not an affiliate of Grammarly in any way, but I simply think that their tool is really helpful, especially if you want to move your communication, especially your writing, to be clearer and more concise. You might wonder how writing can help you improve your speaking. Well, when you write in a more articulate way, the words that you use and the sentence structures that you choose enter your mental dictionary. They are there, floating around in your mind. And when you start speaking, they naturally flow out in your communication style, helping you to sound more articulate and helping you to speak more like a CEO. But when you're aiming to be clear and concise, you do need to be careful that you don't eliminate too much information, leading to the next communication mistake, which is not communicating enough. This could mean not communicating enough information when you speak or not communicating often enough. These are the two areas that you really need to look out for here. When you don't communicate enough information, people can make mistakes because they don't know what they're supposed to do. They can waste time because they need to come back to you and ask you more questions, or they can become demotivated because they might feel that you are keeping them in the dark. And when you don't communicate often enough, people can misunderstand the urgency or the importance of what you're telling them, and they might not follow through in the way or as quickly as you would like. So you really need to find the balance between communicating enough information and communicating often enough. What I recommend you to do here is to regularly check in with your audience to gauge their level of understanding. If they've grasped your main message and they're performing the task adequately, then you've probably communicated enough information. If they are promptly beginning the task like you asked them, then you've probably communicated often enough. But on the other hand, if they are making mistakes, if they're wasting time, if they are asking a lot of questions, or if they're becoming demotivated or dragging their feet, then you might not have communicated enough information, or you may not have communicated often enough. So then you will need to go back to the drawing board and communicate those messages to those people again, and perhaps in a different way. The next communication mistake that will stop you from speaking like a CEO is being boring. The way out of being a boring speaker is to infuse style or stylistic devices into your communication. There's a great example in this book, Think Fast, Speak Smart by Solomon Assine, where he talks about how Steve Jobs did this in one of his product presentations, where he said, "As you know, we've got the iPad, the best music player in the world. We've got the iPod Nanos, brand new models, colors are back. We've got the amazing new iPod Shuffle." Could you pick up the style of speaking that he used to add emphasis and to add more impact to his speech? I've highlighted it on the screen right now for you. He used repetition, the same words to begin each of the 3 sentences. We've got the. This is the phrase that he used and that he repeated at the beginning of each sentence. This is known as anaphora, and it's one of the oldest literary devices that you can use to add rhythm to your speech. There are many other styles that you can infuse in your speaking that the author talks about in this book. I've put a link to this book in the description below if you want to check it out. It is an affiliate link, but if you purchase through it, you will be helping my channel. The next communication mistake you want to avoid, especially if you want to speak like a CEO, is passive communication. Because leaders and CEOs, whenever they communicate, they own their words, they own their requests, and they own their ideas and their opinions too. They're not held back by fear of saying the wrong thing, or fear of offending, or fear of people disagreeing with them. Maybe they've enrolled in my Assertive Communication Skills Masterclass and they've already worked through the fears that are blocking them from communicating assertively. Regardless, if you find yourself altering the way you say something because of any of the fears that I've previously mentioned, then it's likely that you are a passive communicator. The way out of this is to learn how to be a more assertive communicator. You can absolutely do this. This is a style of communication that I did not grow up with, but I learned over time how to be more assertive. And I share my tips and the strategies and things that work for me in this video up here. So check that out once you've finished watching this video. You also want to be careful about alienating people when you communicate. And this often happens when you speak to people rather than speak with people. Speaking to people makes them feel that you're lecturing them like a parent or like a teacher, and that it's not a two-way inclusive conversation. Whereas speaking with them means that you are inviting the other person to contribute to the conversation. You're allowing them to add in their thoughts and their opinions and their ideas as well. And of course, when they contribute with their thoughts, you listen actively and you respond appropriately, like we talked about in point 1 of this video. There is a specific phrase that I like to use in my communication and in my conversations that really helps me to connect with that other other person rather than to alienate them in the conversation. And that phrase is tell me more, tell me how you feel about XYZ, which I go to in much more depth in this video up here. I shared a lot of resources in this video, whether it's about how to be clear and concise in your speaking, or whether it's how to be more assertive when you communicate. Make sure you check out all of the links in the description below to the videos and the resources that I have shared with you. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next week in another video.